6-man tag where I have two other guys that can pick me up, and the fact that it's in Canada, um, I wanted to give this a shot and go to Napanee to see all the fans in Canada again. I really missed it. I enjoyed going there. I've been to Brantford, Ontario. I've been to Hamilton, Ontario. I've been to Toronto. I've been to Montreal. I've been to Quebec. I just miss. I loved going to Canada, and I missed going there. So the opportunity to go there and having two guys in my corner to pick me up in case I need it, then I'm good with it.
Did you ever wrestle in Kingston, Ontario? Because Kingston is very close to Napanee and it used to be a WWE stop.
I don't recall I ever did. I would have remembered that because just like I remember going to the Cayman Islands and other places, when you tend to remember more about where you went outside the United when you go outside the United States. So I I don't remember I don't remember Kingston. I don't recall if I have.
As far as wrestling in Canada, is there any matches that stand out to you that you've had here?
One does. I just told the story the other day, not on a podcast though. Um what sticks out in my mind is that night in Brantford, Ontario, when I looked up at the board and I saw that I was working with Stud, and it was before WrestleMania one, so the $15,000 Body Slam challenge was on and alive and well, and I went over to John, who's just the biggest gentleman, soft spoken guy, and I said, John, we're working together, and he kind of exhaled, and I said, what's wrong? He goes, I'm glad it's you. And I said, why? He goes, my back keeps locking up. My back's in really bad shape. And he said, listen, when I get you up for that backbreaker, you got to get up there by yourself. You got to get up there for me. My back is in bad shape. I said, listen, just I just need that tug for timing. I don't need you to pull me. I just need the tug for timing, and I'll get up there. He said, I really appreciate it. I said, listen, no problem. No problem. It's easy. I'll get right up there for you. Don't sweat it. And he goes, I really appreciate it. And he goes, for that, you're gonna get me up the most. Um, More than anybody has ever gotten me out. And I just kind of laughed and I said, come on. He goes, listen, I'm gonna give you a buckle. I'm gonna come charging, just move. I'll hit it with my chest. When I spin around, just scoop me. And that's what I did. And I got him up to about here, not here, to about here, and the whole place went, whoa, and I just dropped him and grabbed my back. He was too heavy for me, and I started selling my back, and then we went home from there. But we had a pretty good laugh when I came back, and actually, I had a talk with Jesse Ventura um, at the 80s con a couple of years ago. Scott Wilder actually flagged him down on his way in and said, listen, Jesse, Mario Mancini wants to talk to you. It's really important to him. And he said, okay. And he said, come on, Mario, I got him. And I said, listen, all these years I never thanked you because I told him about the match with Stud and the $15,000 body slam challenge. And I said, the guy who was announcing with you laughed at me. And he said, what in the world was Mancini trying to do? I said, and you got hot and you said, I'll tell you what he was trying to do. He was trying to body slam John Studd for $15,000. And he got the big man up a lot further than I ever thought he could. And Jesse goes, do you know why I did that? I go, no, I don't. He goes, I'm going to tell you why. Omar Atlas. I go, Omar Atlas. He goes, Omar Atlas, my first professional wrestling match ever. And nobody wins their debut match. No one. So Omar was going over on me, but Omar saw something in me, and he didn't want to. He went against the promoter. So when it was time for the finish, Omar was. I guess he was supposed to wrap it in a small package or something. And Omar was down on the canvas, and Omar said, "Amigo, throw me over the top rope." amigo, throw me over the top rope. So Jesse threw him over the top rope and he got counted out. And he said, I'll never forget that. He goes, so I do the best I can to get the jobbers over the best I can. Even though they're doing a job, I'll do what I can to get them over because Omar Atlas could have pinned me in the middle and he didn't.
I've heard him tell that story, so you're definitely telling the truth there.
Yeah.
You posted this picture not too long ago where Honky Tonk Man looks really angry. Could you tell us at all about the background of this picture? That's you on the right for anyone that doesn't recognize Mario without his glasses.
Yeah, well, I that was at the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and we were telling war stories and talking about guys. So I forgot who I was telling them about, but you know how Wayne went on those shoot interviews and just killed everybody, right? And it was funny because that particular wrestling convention, um, I had when I walked in, he was in the lobby and he had a big smile on his face, and the arms came out. We hugged, and I said, "Brother, I'm laughing my ass off watching you on YouTube. I mean, I'm crying." And he goes, "Man, I had to stop doing them. It was costing me bookings. I was getting too much hate." So we were talking about that and everything, and Scott Wilder had booked them, and they do a rhythm and blues show, not singing or anything, just telling stories and everything. So they were there waiting to go up, and I just was shooting a breeze with Wayne there, and you'll see a clip too on my Facebook of me, near Valentine busting until I can't breathe. That's because Wayne was up on stage and he was telling a story, and right in the middle of the story he goes, "You don't do that." He goes, "You understand that, Mancini? That's why Dr. D broke your nose, man. Just don't do that. That's why he broke your nose." So um I'm pretty close to those guys, Honky Tonk and Valentine and Demolition and Santana and yeah, Atlas and those, just my generation.
We never really hear any behind the scenes stories about Demolition. I know they are very professional, and I mean they had all that extreme longevity on the independents, and they both had good runs as various characters in the major leagues. Do you have anything from behind the scenes you could share about Demolition?
I just, I talked to Barry and Billy, and I love those guys, and I hope they love me. Every time they see me, they get the biggest smile on their face. And last year, a couple of years ago, there was a downtime at the '80s con in Jersey. As you know, these things are front loaded, from 10 o'clock in the morning until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then after 2 o'clock, it seems like from 2 to 4, it just becomes a cemetery. So I had some downtime, and I walked over from my table, and I was talking to Billy and Barry, and I had something to tell Billy my entire time I knew him that I never did, that I told him that night and that afternoon. And I said, "Billy, I need to tell you something." And he's like, "Yeah, go ahead, kid. I'm always, no matter how old I am, I'm always kid. Go ahead, kid." I said, "You're the best technical wrestler I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen anyone better." I said, I'm going to tell you something right now, Billy. I was in the New Haven Coliseum in 1981, third row on the floor, you and Bob Backlund. You guys didn't throw one kick or one punch. That was the most amazing wrestling match I've ever seen. I go, I can't, the moves, I couldn't even comprehend what you guys were doing, your moves. And I was 15 years old. You know what I mean? So that was 2 years before I even started wrestling school, or even I had the desire to be a professional wrestler, but I didn't know I was going to get the opportunity at that time. So he said, "Thank you, I really appreciate that." And then of course the Rita Marie thing was going on with me, and Barry, I think is pretty ambivalent about the whole thing, but um, I think Barry's pretty ambivalent. I think Billy's got. I don't know if he's got an axe to grind, but why those guys aren't in the Hall of Fame or anything. You know what I find out, Hannibal? I find that people that just dealt with Vince McMahon, a few of them aren't really that bad. I mean, he screwed a lot of guys, but for the most part, some of them really aren't bad. But the
Oh, I'm just
guy,
telling people to give it a thumbs up
but
and share so we
yeah,
get lots of
but
people hearing your stories.
but the guys who worked for Vince Senior, then Vince Junior, they seem to know the difference, and then they have an axe to grind. And Billy worked for Vince Senior first, of course, then Vince Junior. But Bill Eadie he's an absolute legend in this business. One of the best wrestlers that ever entered that ring in wrestling history. I mean, he really, not only did he have the size and the strength, the athletic ability, and the mechanics of a scientific professional wrestler, which meant everything to us back then. That was the goal of your reputation. You ask any wrestler from the 70s and 80s, that was the goal of your reputation, is to be the best scientific wrestler that you could possibly be. The best scientific wrestler, which is shitting out the window today.
That's very true. Here's a good question of a guy that I've interviewed a bunch of times and recently got himself in a lot of trouble. Obviously, mental health issues played a role in it. But were you around Billy Jack Haynes much, or was
There
was
wasn't there,
he before your time?
there wasn't one time that Billy wasn't smiling. There wasn't one time that Billy wasn't ribbing. There wasn't one time that Billy wasn't making us laugh. You know, there wasn't one time. He had a character that cracked us up, man. Cracked us up. He had a character called Little Billy, and it was a baby learning how to walk for the first time. And he'd go down a little bit in the dressing room. We'd go, "Come on, Billy, come on!" And he'd start like taking these little steps, like almost falling over and shit and stuff. The way he did it was just funny, man. It was hilarious. He was a good guy. He was a good guy. Listen, I don't know if they were true or not. It's like there were rumors going around the dressing room when he first came in, that he did, prior to coming in and becoming a wrestler, he did 7 years for manslaughter. I have no idea if that's true or not. None. But those were the rumors back then. But listen, I don't think there's anyone in that dressing room. I mean, from what I saw when I was in the dressing room with him, that any had any hard feelings toward him, or he had any heat with anybody. Um, I don't know how he conducted his business, but I always, it's just like Hannibal. It's just like they talk about Haku. Is Haku as tough as they say he was? Well, yeah. You think he's the toughest guy in the history of pro wrestling? Uh, yeah. Try to see him angry. Haku's joking, he's smiling, he loves the laugh, he loves the joke. I've never seen the guy lose his temper one time. You know what I mean? He is always a very gentle, just a lovable guy, always smiling and laughing. And for the people out there that know Haku, know that I'm telling the truth. Now, threaten him or have him lose his temper, then that's a different thing.
Is it your birthday today?
Yesterday.
Well, happy belated birthday to you.
Yeah, thanks. The
You're
Guardians.
stepping into the ring a week after your birthday. Wow.
I told Jack that. I told Jack that. I said, Jack, well, Mario, it's Mario. Mario, you're all. I go, Jack, I'm going in there a week after my 50th birthday. And you know what I mean? Listen, I'm going to give whatever I got left. That's what I'm going to give, whatever I got left. You know what I mean? So, um, I don't know how much I have left, but I'm going to give what I have left. And it's not when I was 24 years old, guys. I don't have that. I don't have it. Uh, thanks, Richie. I don't have that. So I'm going to give what I have. Again, there's three factors why I'm going. I love Jack. I think he's a great guy. I think he belongs in the wrestling business. He's a good promoter. He's a smart guy. He's a respectable guy. He respects the business and everybody in it. That's number one. Number two, I miss going to Canada. And number three, I got two youngsters in my corner. So, you know what? You know, hello, Norway. So I'm going to give what I have left. It's hard to say no to Jack. um because he's such a gentleman. He's a good guy, man. So I'll go. I want to go and see the people of Canada, and of course Roma and I are so close. It's like for the past 2 years it's almost like we don't do anything in the wrestling business unless we're package deals. You get me, you get Roma, you get Roma, you get me. So,
Well, I know the
um,
fans are excited to see both of you. I know Roma's probably been to that area before with WWE, but it's been a
oh
long
yeah,
time.
definitely. Yeah,
Somebody
Rick,
wants to know
listen.
about Corporal Kirshner.
Listen, Corporal Kirshner, may he rest in peace. Nice kid. I was so happy for him because if you go back, he was a jobber like me. Every week, he had a long beard, he had long hair, and he was a jobber. And you know what? You got to push. So he shaved, cut his hair. They cut some promos for a few weeks that Sergeant Slaughter had him in boot camp, and he got a good spot. And he went over. Nice kid, nice guy. I was happy for him. You know.
Oh, we're losing Mario, but I'm sure we're going to get him back. And I'm going to ask this question about the Cops Coliseum. If you live in Ottawa or Toronto, it's only a 2-hour drive to Napanee for his retirement match next Saturday night as he's logging on, but he'll be back. And he's bringing Paul Roma with him as backup next Saturday night in Napanee, Ontario. No, Mario is not drunk 100%. He's going to be right back on. I don't know. Oh, is he trying to beg? I don't know. But yeah, guys, come on out to that event. I'm going to be wrestling for the first time in almost 2 years. Mario is going to be right back on to continue talking about this match and answer some of your questions. Mario might watch this when he rewatches it. Sam says happy birthday. It's interesting that he said Corporal Kirshner was a nice guy because Mick Foley actually bashes Kirshner in his book. Here's the birthday boy back.
Yeah.
No, you're not drunk, by the way. Someone asked if you were drunk.
No, the problem is that I'm not on my laptop. I'm on my phone, and when my phone rings, it knocks off the StreamYard. Uh,
You got a
no, I
question
that
about
I don't.
Hamilton Cops Coliseum.
Yeah, yeah, Hamilton, Ontario. I wrestled a few people there. One that stands out is Dr. D. That's on YouTube from Hamilton, Ontario.
There was a guy that my friend John Paz interviewed, AJ Petrucci, and he said that he confronted Dr. D after that on your behalf. Is that true?
Well, you got to remember something. I started Passarello's Quest Wrestling School in October of 1983. When I walked in there, it was me, Dave Barbie, AJ Petrucci, and Seth Cohen. So Seth stayed for a cup of coffee because he was like 6'8", and he was bigger than the guys he was putting over, and he had no politics. So he didn't stay that long. But myself, Dave Barbie, and AJ Petrucci did. And when you start off with somebody in ground zero in a wrestling school like that, you create a bond. that's still strong today. Dave Barbie has gotten cranky and disappeared, but AJ and Seth and I are still very close. AJ made it up from Pennsylvania, from the Poconos there when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame in New England in 2014. And we're very close. And I was only 17 when I got to wrestling school. When Schultz broke my nose, I just turned 18, obviously June 21st of '84, and he broke my nose on August 9th. So, um, the guys were upset because I was their little brother. You got to remember when AJ. I think Seth was 24. I was 17. Both AJ and Dave were, I think, in their very early 30s. So I was like their little brother. So when AJ saw him in the dressing room, he went up to him and said, "What the hell, man? You broke his nose." But I guarantee everybody today, along with AJ, as I was on the phone with David for about an hour this past week, that there's a lot of love there, a lot of respect, and I love David Schultz. I love him to death, and he loves me. So he calls me from those backwoods of Tennessee, and we shoot the shit for a little bit, and I love listening to him talk. On now, listen, boy, he's I do a lot of podcasts, as you know, and a lot of people like to ask me who is true to themselves on and off camera, who is really like the same person, and of course, a lot of people say Randy Savage, but it truly is Dr. D. What you saw in those promos, man,
Oh, I've met him. I've interviewed him twice and I've hung out with him.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I know what he's like. I gotta ask you, since Paul Roma isn't here, I mean, I've seen you talk about it on other interviews, and Paul talked about it on News Nation that Pat Patterson allegedly made advances to his partner Jim Powers at one point. Is there any truth to that, or do you know anything about that situation?
Well, there has to be Hannibal because a couple of months ago at the '80s con, um, you know, Scott Wilder brought Jim Powers in, and it was the first time in years that the Young Stallions were together, and we were out to dinner, and that's all we did was rib him about that Powers. And they used to say you don't have to do anything; all you have to do is lay back and let him play with it for a while. Um, Patterson wanted Jimmy Powers in the worst way, man, and he just, God bless him. He's a man, and he had character, and he had pride, and he had confidence in his body, which he should have, in his wrestling ability, and felt that that was against his morals and his values, like a lot of us did, and didn't give in to that. So, but Patterson was, Hannibal, just think of the one girl, one woman in your life that you were most attracted to, or whatever, or would toss and turn at night, having a hard time falling asleep just thinking about her. And that's how Patterson thought about Powers. There's a lot of pressure.
Very, yeah, I can only imagine in those days, and there's a lot of stories from a lot of people about those days.
Yeah.
Roma was also a very good-looking guy. He still is.
I got a
What
story
is
about that.
he? Yeah, was he okay?
So the guy set up Roma in Canada, in Brantford, Ontario. So they set him up. So there were guys in front of Roma, and they gave him the line, hey, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is, lay back and let him play with it for a while. And Roma got hot, hot. And he goes, let me tell you something. Pat Patterson tries anything with me or comes up to me, I'll fucking lay him out. And the guys kind of just sat back, and Roman just kind of looked, and he turned around, and Pat was behind him. He's like, "Hey Pat, how are you?" And he's like, "Good, Roma. How are you?" And just walked away. And I think that's what really deterred Patterson from ever. Um, thanks, Charles. That's what deterred Patterson from ever even thinking about Roma, because he didn't want to get his ass kicked. You got to
Yeah,
remember something. Roma, listen, you could put $1 million in front of Roma, $2 million in front of them. You can say you're going to give him $50 million to be a lead person in a movie. If something questions his morals, his character, or his right or wrong, he will forego all of it and tell you that he will rip your spine right out of your back. I mean, when he had his final meeting with Vince McMahon, it got heated. It got heated to the point where Vince stood up and he goes, "You better sit back down before I knock you down." And he said that knowing saying that would be his last day there, and it was. But Roman didn't care because he was screwing over his best friend. He was screwing over his brother, and basically that meeting was about why are you separating Ray and I, and why is he doing jobs and I'm going over? And Vince said, "Well, we might have different plans for you." He goes, "No, no. What about Ray? What about Ray?" And he goes, "Well," and that's how it got heated because they split him up. So, Roma's going to listen. I've been in situations with Roma. I was with a woman. Roma had got a hold of me and said, "Listen, I need more tickets to the show, man. All my tickets are gone." And I said, "Okay, meet me at the Dunkin' Donuts on Washington Ave." And I was with my girlfriend at the time. And sitting on an outside table at Washington Avenue was her ex boyfriend that used to beat her. So I met Roma in the back and I go, her ex boyfriend's in the front there at an outside table. He used to beat the shit out of her. He goes, "I think I want a coffee." So we walk up to the Dunkin' Donuts, and unfortunately, the drive through was open, but the indoor was closed. So he tugs at the door, and it won't open. But he looks over at the guy sitting at the table, her ex boyfriend, looks right at me, goes, "This guy," and the guy staring at him. And Roma goes, "This guy's a minute steak." And the guy just went, he wouldn't look at him. So if you're Roma's family, which I am, or you try to go against the military, God, those two big things right there, especially the military. He'll voice his opinion. He doesn't care, and he doesn't care what he loses to stand up for what he believes in. That's who Roma is. So,
how much could he bench? A bunch of people are questioning it.
um, I I I saw Roma. I saw Roma bench 550 for 5 reps once. I seen him deadlift 650. I mean, he repped it once. He picked it up and put it down. It looked like he could have gotten 10 reps out of it.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, man, Roma was strong. Listen, here's my deal. Here's my deal. If you're gonna power slam me off the ropes, you better be there because I'm going with or without you. That's what I would tell DiBiase. I would tell anybody that was power slamming. Hey, Mancini, at one point I'm gonna give you a power slam. I go, well, you know what? You better be there because once those arms come out, I'm going. I'm off. I'm gone. So you better be there for the guy because I'm gone. It's a high deal, man. That's what it is. So I go, I'm gone. So you better make sure you're there. Don't worry, Mario. I'll get you. All right. Roma, I'm working house shows at Roma. He goes, "Listen to me. Don't jump. You're going to mess the whole thing up. I got you. Mario, don't jump. You got it, Roma." Throw me against the ropes. I'd come straight at him. He would scoop me, bring me right over. Boom. No problem.
Yeah, and as a wrestler, I know what that's like. The fans might have a hard time understanding that, but we'll kayfabe that. But those power slams can be scary.
Yeah.
Charlie wants to know if you have any good stories from the Springfield Civic Center.
Charlie, I wrestled there a lot, man. I wrestled there a lot in Holyoke, Fall River. Nothing really sticks out in my head. When I was young and dumb, and you know the last part, and single, and I would go around the country. I it got so bad that in house shows, like, I'd go powder, powder, and they'd throw me out of the ring, and I would be checking out the front row, you know what I mean? And I'd be looking at the other front rows and everything. So there were a few times where I got thrown out, and I'd climb back up on the steel ring barricade and lean my head into the front row at a girl that didn't have a boyfriend with her or anything, looked kind of my age, and I'd go, Red Roof Inn, room 212, and I go back in the ring. Massachusetts probably has the hardest core wrestling fans in the country. I mean, hardcore. And the men outnumber the women in droves. I mean, they are really, really hardcore wrestling fans there in the Commonwealth, as well as the Red Sox and everything. So, I have no crazy stories about Massachusetts, but I had fun there.
The Duke of Dorchester, Rick wants to know about him. Did you have much experience with him?
Rick, um, I love the Duke a lot. I still do. I hope he's doing well, Pete. Um, Kind of a sweet story. I was in the Boston Garden, and Pete was going overseas to the Middle East, and they needed a match to send over there, and they wanted a match that night. So I was asked if I can go out there and put them over, and I was so happy to do it. I really sold the shit out of it for him. I put him over like the 4th of July for the Canadians that know what the 4th of July is here. So I really put him over like fireworks, man. I love Pete. And again, Pete was another guy I was watching when I was 12, 13 years old. So I had the most respect for him, and so yeah, I put him over big in the Boston Garden, Pete. He, again, funny guy, funny guy. Um you can watch us on Tuesday Night Titans on YouTube. Um we did an episode of Tuesday Night Titans there, and Pete was just a great guy. I love Pete. And I hope he's well. I know he's been battling some stuff, and I just hope he's doing really well. Good guy.
Someone wants to know how much the enhancement talent got paid. I bet it may have varied from place to
Anywhere from 250 to 450 a match. Of course, that's not doing too badly in 1984 when you're 18, and if you can get 5 nights in that week, right? I will tell you, my highest week in the business was, it was a fluke. They were all house shows, and it was a fluke. I worked the Garden, the Hartford Civic Center, and I think it was the Boston Garden in one week, or it might have been Maine, might have been Portland in one week, and I made 3,300 in one week. That was the highest week I ever had in pro wrestling. In the WWF was 3,300 bucks. They were called first towns. Those were the towns that Hogan's in. So um, Vince was running 4 towns a night until the Iron Sheik and Duggan got caught in the car. Well, wrestling kind of lost its flair a little bit there, but he was running 4 towns a night. So I was usually in the third or fourth town. Sometimes I get in a second town, which was nice. Um, but every now and then, man, I'd get a first town, and that would be nice. That would be 650, 750. Good stuff. Yeah. Well, I wasn't on salary. There were very few guys on salary. The only guys I know that were on salary were like Savage, and I think Herc's salary was like 7,000 a week. Um, Randy's, I heard, was like 12, 14. Um, I'm sure a lot of other guys were on weekly salaries, but a lot of guys weren't. So
I gotta ask you, it just came out a couple weeks ago. WWE's lowest pay for main roster used to be 250. Now it's 350. They're lucky if they wrestle twice a week these days. AEW is paying, I hear, a minimum 150, and a lot of these guys are just sitting at home collecting paychecks. And now a lot of these wrestlers haven't even paid any dues. I know it's a different time and stuff, but does it kind of bug you at all, the amount of money these people are making these days compared
Hey,
to how hard, like you talk? Yeah.
Hannibal, this is going to be the most ridiculous explanation on why it doesn't bother me that you've ever heard in your life in the history of Hannibal TV. When we worked, if you didn't work, you didn't get paid. And that's if you were a big name. Even you weren't, the contracts were not guaranteed. You didn't work, you didn't get paid, period. Got, you know, Hannibal, you heard the stories. Kurt Hennig got hurt. He was paying Lloyd's of London for an insurance policy, like 5,000 a month. And when he got hurt, they paid him. We had no benefits. There was no disability. There was nothing. You didn't get work. You didn't work. You didn't get paid. These days, these guys do. Do I feel bad about it? No. And I'm going to give you the most ridiculous explanation why. Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Reggie Jackson, Thurman Munson. Thurman Munson was the highest paid Yankee before Reggie came at 800,000 a year. How much money, you know, would Mickey Mantle make now at 20 years old? Now, 80 million a year? 80 mil, Juan Soto is looking for a $600 million contract. These baseball players were a lot talented than a lot of them making this big money today. And a lot of them are still alive, you know. Just thinking of a guy like Lou Piniella, guys like Mickey Rivers, Greg Nettles. I'm naming Yankees because I'm a Yankee fan. Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, the greatest catcher that ever played the game. How much were these guys worth on today's dollar? Don't you think they're sitting there going, man, I didn't get paid that kind of money, man. Wow. And I'm a better baseball player than they are. Wow, I didn't get that money. Nowhere near it. So, you know what? There's a lot of people in this world that back in the day were in their era, and today's day is, you know, there's a guy sitting home right now in a retirement apartment going, why didn't I hold on to my house for another 5 years? I sold it 5 years ago for 250,000. I probably could have got 490 for it in today's market. You know, everybody misses the payday somewhere, brother.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's crazy. Would you ever have imagined it would have got this high? Because 15 years ago, when I was like at my beginning and could have made it, there was only WWE and like there was no competition. And now the top guys are making 4 million. Guys like Lesnar are making like 12 million. It's crazy. I hear Moxley might even be making six.
well, I was talking to somebody the other day about Max, and I'm like, geez, can't Max give you a hand? You know, can he help you get in MJF? And he's like, he doesn't care. He's making 1 million a year. I go, they're paying him 1 million? Yeah, yeah. AEW's paying him 1 million. I'm like,
He
what?
just re-signed and got a tattoo of AEW, so I'm sure it's even more than that now. I actually heard Meltzer say the difference between MJF and Hogan is that Hogan would help out his friends, and MJF, he's more for himself. He doesn't care if his friends get pushed or not, or he doesn't push for them to get hired. I mean, to each their own. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but Hogan seemed to take care of his buddies a lot.
And that's what I say about Hogan when they people ask me how he was. He had a lot of pressure on him because he had a lot of people to pay back. A lot of people helped him, and he had a lot of people to pay back. But I'm not going to mention the wrestler's name. But I saw the text with my own eyes. He was sitting right next to me.
Apparently, his new deal. I think you must know this loose cannon '88 guy. Is this Scott Wilder by any chance?
No,
Anyway, he's saying Max has a 5-year, $25 million deal, which
that's a
I would
man.
actually believe.
Yeah, I would believe that. But you know what though?
Plus, they hired his girlfriend. They hired his girlfriend on top of that. So maybe he did did want someone to get in.
I
But
saw the
she is
text.
talented.
I saw the text with my own eyes, and it was left off that, hey, if you need me, don't feel weird, man. Get in touch with me. Okay. Well, we were sitting there talking, and he goes, you know what, Mario? I'm gonna do it, and he did. And he was asking him questions, obvious questions about getting in and everything, and he was kind of aloof. And he had said back, this wrestler had said back to them, he goes, you know, Max, you told me to get a hold of you if I wanted to and don't feel weird about it, and you're making me feel weird. That was it.
Well, I have a funny comment to make on a different subject. Your opponent, we were going to surprise you and he was going to chime in on this, but he can't figure out StreamYard. So Ian Hodge or Richie Hodge is asking, who is your opponent? Is it Steve McNugget? Dude can't cut a promo. Well, he literally can't cut a promo because he can't figure out StreamYard, which is you click a link. So so who is your
Wow,
opponent, Mario?
wow, you were gonna Pearl Harbor me, Hannibal, with this guy? That's what you were gonna do to me?
You wouldn't mind that, would you?
You were gonna Pearl Harbor me with this guy, Bruiser, is the guy with the beard?
The big Jack guy with the beard.
The other guy that came on and said those things about me. You were gonna Pearl Harbor me, Hannibal? Well, I'll tell you what. I'll see you and them there next week. Doing this show, you're gonna Pearl Harbor me like that. Nobody disrespects me like that.
I guess he didn't want me to bring the Bruiser on as a surprise. Jack, I hope I hope you can. I'm sorry, Mario. I didn't realize you were going to get upset about it. You and Paul. I mean, they're supposed to be in Napanee next Saturday. I honestly didn't mean to offend him by that, and I'm sorry, guys, that he's now cut it short. We had like another 13 minutes planned here.